Hey everyone, it's Jeanette with Untamed and Unapologetic. I am so excited to have one of my guests today. Her name is Barbara. Barbara, I'm so excited to have you with me. I met Barbara just this year. Tell the audience how you know me.
So I met Jeanette at in Vegas at a Own It event, and so I've just been getting to know her. She's amazing at everything she does, and she gives everything to her clients, and I love watching her growing. I just look forward to getting to know you even more.
Thank you, Barbara. Yeah, since I've met you, you are just like such a bright light, right? I think I've only met you in person a couple of times. I already adore you. And you're doing some pretty amazing things too. So we'll talk about that in a little while because I want everyone to know what you're doing because it's unique. It's different. Growing up for myself, I've always been told like we're supposed to be a certain way and do a certain thing. And what you're creating is a brand that kind of goes against that.
So
Let's talk to the audience a little bit about you, right? How did you become who you are today? Tell us a little bit about you. Give me a story of something that's happened in your life that kind of threw you on the ground and you had to pick yourself up.
yeah, so the biggest thing that really threw me on the ground was 4 years ago. I discovered that my marriage wasn't as strong as I thought it was,
Mm.
infidelity and things like that. And from there, we tried to work it out. My husband was the breadwinner. I was behind the scenes, usually just handling our investments, our purchasing property, like investment property and things like that. And so I had to rebuild myself and build myself up from nothing because I didn't, I supported his career my whole life. I kind of let my own life to the side. Like I didn't necessarily focus on what I wanted to do, right?
Mhm,
These last 4 years have led me to a journey of self discovery and to really figure out what I want in my next marriage, right? Because I do want to
mhm.
get married again in my life. And so now I've had to come into figuring things out. And I'm like, okay, I figure things out, I get things done. Last year we did this remodel project for my parents' property, which is being used for my mission, one of my vision. And it took us 6 months, and we did it on a shoestring budget of $180,000,
Oh my gosh.
which for what we did, people are always like, that's insane. That's
Yeah.
insane. How did you do this in 6 months and with $180,000? Well, blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights. And we were just grinding for 6 months, my mom and I.
Uh-huh.
We had a team of people, of course, helping us, but the fact that we were able to do so much in such little time. From there, we launched this year. The property launched this year. And by the first, once I launched it, people started booking.
Yeah.
The second month in, we had over 13,000 in net revenue bookings, which was really cool to see because everyone was saying like, oh, it's going to take like a year. It's going to take time to start getting those bookings for events and
And it didn't. Yeah.
and it didn't exactly. And so, and every time I do, and I have a multifamily investment property as well. We're about to start remodeling.
Mhm.
Again, this was, every jump is like this, me pushing to get it done, and me like, okay, like, pushing
Yeah.
it out. And so like this property was also the multifamily. This was also something that I was just going focused on that, right? And then finally we got it. Even now to get the money to remodel it, it's been a
Yeah.
journey, right? And so now we finally got the money to remodel. And
Yeah.
so it's like I'm figuring a lot of things out that I used to rely on my ex-husband for. And it's really given me a lot of wings and just
Mhm.
like to see what I'm capable of. I've done insurance sales. I've done like throughout these 4 years, I've done all these different things, right? But one of the things that I really, really focused on was really seeing what I brought into the marriage in the 17 years that created the dynamic that I didn't want, the boundaries that I didn't have with myself, the boundaries that I didn't have in general, and just the standards I didn't have for myself. And
Mhm.
so I have now, and people think it's crazy. It's like, well, you're never going to find someone that's going to have those and that. And I said, this is what I've been told about properties that I've purchased, about things I've done. So a story. The first house that we bought in my 20s, we put an offer in. It was a short sale, and I packed up my house and like within the first month of that offer without knowing if we were getting the house because I said the
Yeah.
house is ours. We waited for like 4 months after that. So I was with my whole house packed for 4 months,
Oh
swearing
my
that the house
gosh.
was ours. And people were like, but are you like you should
Yeah.
probably like look for something else, or I'm like,
You're like,
nope,
"No."
let's yeah. And I said, because it was a short sale, and so there was two banks that needed it was like a whole process. And this is how I live my life. It's like if I want something, I go for it, and I don't I don't let people tell me, well, try something else, or no, look,
Yeah.
no, this is what I want. So I feel the same way in terms of my next marriage, that
Yeah.
I have a certain standard, certain boundaries, and that's what I want, and that's what I'm gonna have, right? This is just the mentality I have.
Yeah.
And I think that we all can do that, right? We all can have that beautiful
Yeah.
marriage and that beautiful
So let me ask you, Barbara. So let's rewind a little bit, right?
yeah.
Let's rewind to the divorce and you found out all these things because I mean, you're telling me that you're like this force, right? Like I make a decision and I move forward and I keep on going and I know what I want. I'm going to get what I want. Had it always been that way, like prior to your divorce, or was the divorce like your turning point?
Yeah, so I would say that, in a sense, I've always been that way. The turning point for me in the divorce actually was where I realized that in my marriage was actually a big problem
Mm.
because I would steamroll over my ex-husband all the time behind the scenes, right? But I would basically steamroll. So what I realized, is that actually, with men, if we allow them the space and we show them respect and we show them admiration and appreciation, we can get so much further with them. And so I started putting these things into practice with the men in my life because with my dad, ever since I was young, I was always very confrontational with him. And I was always very much like, oh, whatever it is, I would come at him and he would tell me, I'm the rock, you're the egg. If we crash, you break. Keep that in mind. This was our dynamic, right? But after my divorce and I started studying the principles of relationships and the principles of, I started studying biology, how men function, how women function, all of this, right? I started putting these things into practice with my ex-husband, with my dad, with the men around me, and everything changed with
Yeah.
my relationships with them. With my dad, he started treating me like a princess. He's now he where before it was like he would treat me like if I was like almost his enemy because we would just clash all the time.
Butt heads.
Because
Was it because that you were like strong-willed and you needed to be powerful? Like what what about that old persona that you had to shift?
yeah, so my need to control, my need to be right, my need to be, you know, the one always knowing what needed
Mhm,
to be done and how to do it right. Like that's just the way that I can be, right? So I can
mhm,
choose that, or I can choose to be more just like with my dad, right? One day we politics was a big thing, and so
mhm,
we were talking about certain things, and he's like, well, he made a comment, and he said, well, if whatever, I'm not going to get into what he said specifically, but he just kind of said, like whoever thinks that is he said something like a traitor or something along those lines. And I said, "Oh, Dad, go make your traitor of a daughter a coffee, please." And he just starts laughing. And then he went and starts making me a coffee or whatever.
huh,
And I just like diffused the situation by, like just making a little joke and kind of gearing the conversation in another direction to like not get into that. And whereas before I would just want to make my point, want to make my, and just keep that confrontation, right? And then little things like that, like he would say, "Oh, let's go here," and before it would be like, "No, I don't want to go there. I want to go here." No, and then now I'm like, "Oh, you know what? That sounds great, Dad. Okay, yeah, let's do." whatever it is.
Mhm.
And then he just, I know, I've noticed that he just wants to do more and give me more and then spoil me more as a dad. Whereas
Yeah.
before it would be like, it would just be it was a whole different dynamic. It
Yeah,
was
it
like,
sounded like there was maybe resentment
yes,
previously because you wanted to be right, he wanted to be right, and, like,
yes.
nobody ever won.
Exactly, and I would also get in between a lot of my parents' fights.
Mhm.
So even as an adult, like, for example, they were remodeling a bathroom and my mom wanted it this way, he wanted it this way. I'd get in the middle, go with my mom. And then it would be me and my mom against him, and then he would be like, fine. And now I don't get in the middle. If anything, I go with his side. And
Mhm.
not if I think it's not okay, but if not, I stay in the middle. And if
Yeah.
not, then, but at the same time, because I know my relationship with my mom we've always had a good relationship that's very
Mhm.
different, but just the way that I interact with him and with even men around me, like I said, I almost everywhere I go, like men are just so, kind and generous and giving and in a different dynamic. My ex-husband, the dynamic with him is even now there's things that I am like, okay, well, unless he gives me like that full, like, okay, then I'm not going to steamroll him. And then I noticed that it's actually made it so that he wants to, even as us separated, he takes
Mhm.
care of me in a lot of ways as friends, only because he, like he sees like the difference in the dynamic. And so to me, it's just interesting. Like the shift I've had to make was going from very hard
Yeah.
and, steamrolling it to more of a like soft
Yeah.
and
In my head, I'm trying to understand because, you're a powerful woman, right? How does a
Mhm.
powerful, strong woman almost like I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're sitting back and you're taking your opinion and you're leaving it on the table instead of like, this is where it's at, right? So,
yeah.
how does that strong woman do that in a way where they're kind of sitting back, letting the man take control? However, what if you're right? Like, how do you get him to be like, you know what, your plan is better than mine
That's
without
exactly.
doing the steamroll, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So that is the real kicker, which is so fascinating because it's when I am in that surrender that
Mhm.
then they give me the power. So, for example, with my ex-husband, when we were remodeling the property, and I think, I've mentioned this, but we came in, I wanted to take down walls, I wanted to do this and that, right? And and during that time, it was like towards that time, I was like learning the stuff a little bit, right? And like, and so he didn't want to do any of that, like take down walls, none of that. We got into a little bit of a fight. I then was like, okay, I'm going to let it go, put it, let him make the decision and, give that to him, knowing very well what I was envisioning and wanting. So I told him, right, you know what, you're right. Like, this is too much, this is, as much as I want it, whatever it is, like it's up to you, whatever you want. Next day we come in to start doing what we were going to do.
Mm.
And he starts tearing down that wall that we were fighting about. And I started to cry because I was like, oh, like that's like, I felt, but it was like in that letting go, he then, because what I also have realized and studied is that men want to please women, like more than anything. Like this is just the way we're built. The men are, they want to please us, they want to make us happy, but they also have an ego. And so, if there's ways to learn, right, that, to that have, so it's like, how do I state my desires in a way that inspires, not in a way that is demanding, controlling, and pushing, and right. And so that's been the tweaks I've made. It's like, no, I do still get what I want, and I do still
Mhm.
get what I want, but I just need to learn how to communicate that in a way that isn't just me
Right.
stating my opinions and by force or by pushing or by, right. And so it's like in that softness and surrender, I
Mhm.
have found that I receive way more. And I've experienced it in the last 4 years from the men around me that are like parts of my life than
Mhm.
when I have been just, this is what I think, this is what I want, and this is how I want it, right? And so
Mhm.
that shift for me and that softness and surrender has given me much more leverage and what I want from these men around me than going the other way. So that's a great question because it seems like it is difficult. It's difficult
Yeah,
for me to not be like, oh, I just want this, like this, and then versus having to really think about how do I do this or say this in a way that inspires versus just,
exactly.
you
And
know,
how does that even come out? Because, like, in my head, like, I'm smart, right? We're
yeah,
smart,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
educated, I'm a mental health professional. I mean, like, we have these businesses, we do these things,
yeah.
and I
And we're
want
so
nothing
used to, and
more.
we're used to like telling people what to do, how to do it, and direct, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I want nothing more than to be able to, like, throw my hands up and let someone take care of me and be the one that's gonna do that. But when you're so used to, like, directing and ordering and doing all these things and looking for thing I mean, how does one, like, train their brain to be like, "Hold on, Jeanette, you don't need to say it that way. You can kinda just let it simmer and see what happens." But how do you do that?
Well, I would say the first thing is to start becoming aware of where you're doing that
Mhm.
and the places that you're doing it. And really awareness is the first part. It's like, okay, how, I'm going to observe myself, my interactions with this person or this,
Mhm.
and like if we're talking about men, okay, with this man or, this person. And I'm going to observe my interactions and then I'm going to see, because this
Mhm.
is what I've had to do with my dad. Like, I just started to observe myself. Okay, do I have, like, I don't have to speak right away. I don't have to like give an opinion or say what I want right away. So then I'm like, okay, this is what I want. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is what I want. So how, and so I start to calculate what is the best way for me to get what I want from this interaction, right, with my
Mhm.
dad. Whether it be that I want a hug or I want just to feel loved by him, right? Or just want to feel cared for, right? And so it's like, okay, obviously if I'm prickly, he's not going to want to hug me, right?
No.
So if I'm judging him, he's not going to want to hug me. If I'm criticizing, if I'm, putting down his ideas, nobody wants to be around, that,
Mhm.
because if my ideas are better than his, then nobody wants that all the time, right? So unless he asks me, right, oh, what's your thoughts on this or what's your,
Mhm.
then, I'll come in and tell him and he can take it or leave it, whatever it is. So I just really started becoming aware of my interactions with the men around me and how, you know, that could be tweaked for
Mhm.
me getting what I wanted, you know,
Yeah.
which for with my dad it was like a better relationship of like connection and just love, and it wasn't because he changed, but I had to change, right? And then
Exactly.
he noticed it and he started to, shift and make those
Mhm.
shifts, and now in the last 4 years the relationship with my dad has changed drastically,
Yeah.
drastically.
Well, it sounds like your communication style changed, right? And
Yes.
I have a lot of couples that I see every once in a while, and it's a lot of like butting heads. Like one person wants to be right, the other one wants to be right.
Mhm.
But if
Mhm.
you are to like slow down, and this is how I'm kind of like conceptualizing it as you're talking to me,
Mhm.
but as
Mhm.
you slow down and step back, you can
Mhm.
ask yourself, like, what does, whether it's your partner, your dad, somebody like your significant other, like whoever, but
Yeah.
what do they need from me to feel heard, seen, validated?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that's really a good question, like some good questions to ask yourself, and then you can take that step back and just analyze yourself. And the
Yeah,
more we do that, and I think everything with our life, right? I think the better off we can be in making those decisions within our relationships and how we go about it. Because even with my ex-husband, There's a lot of things that I will take that step back, pause, and find a way to communicate it with him in a way that inspires him to then want to, you know, either go along with my idea or, or I am also open to his ideas because there's things that he sees that I don't see. So also being willing to be wrong and being willing to see like my ideas aren't always the best or my ideas aren't always
Yeah.
and so like, whereas before with him, it was, I felt like I would treat him a lot like an employee, even though I never necessarily ran a company or anything like that, which is crazy because I would come in and I would be like, no, this needs to be like this and like this and like this because I knew what I wanted, right?
Yeah.
Whatever it was. Like I just always have known what I want. And then to be able to, or to force myself to like soften up and like, right. And let go
Yeah.
of that. That's been a challenge. And I think that is the challenge for today's modern woman
Yeah.
because it used to be, I think, the opposite where women were just kind of like on the wayside and they didn't, and they
Mhm.
were abused and used by men in ways that, then took us to the other side where it was like,
Mhm.
you know, even though I didn't run a whole corporation, I
Yeah.
ran my household that way. I ran my whole household like if it was.
Yeah, that's what
And
kinda came to my mind right now, like our gender roles and how our cultures kind of step
Mhm.
in too. Like, I
Yeah.
was taught that, like, I'm Hispanic, right? So I was taught that
Mhm.
I take care of the house, I take care of my husband, I take care of the children.
Yeah.
But with this new version of me, like, that doesn't work for me.
Mhm. Yeah.
So having to find an in between that balances the what I know, like I run the show, like this is like we're in the back, but we're still running the show. And
Mhm.
then this other version that's like I'm in the front and I'm running the show, but how do I find that middle ground where I can go back but also still shine?
Exactly. So that's in my way. My vision and mission is like creating that dynamic of balance between your exterior, out in the world version and then the home version. Because what happens is with us women, men get to have that version at home and out, right? They don't have to switch roles because, that's just how they've been built, right? In general. But for us, we want to go out there and do things and all of that. And then we also want that soft life with a husband. We want to have like that,
Mhm.
really amazing juicy marriage, like I like
Yeah,
to call
where
it,
we can be taken care of.
where we're taken care of. Exactly,
Multi-serious.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so that is my mission. It's like how to teach women to learn how to surrender and receive while still standing in their power and living out their mission and their vision in their life,
Mhm.
but then being able to shift, right? So being able to shift because there's moments where I can be on fully the powerful, whatever, like
Mhm.
just out there, Barbara. And then when it comes to, the men in my life, like people that I know, like my dad and the people
Mhm.
that are in my life in that way, soft surrender and letting go, right?
Mhm.
Because I just find that I get what I want more, in that way. So yeah, it's like finding that balance. And so that's one of the things that I have in my vision and mission. It's like teaching women that it's like, yes, we can be powerful. Yes, we can do all of the things. But do you want to do all of the things all the time? No. But no woman does, and we're exhausted. We are, tired of carrying the world on our backs.
Mhm.
And we don't have to because the men are out there and they can do that for us. And
Yeah, and
that's
they
really,
want to. That's the
and
thing.
they want to, but we kind of have been taking that away from them by us taking on so much power. And it doesn't mean neither of us have to diminish our power. It's just learning how to create that balance between the male and the female, the
Mhm.
masculine, feminine, and creating that balance where we both are powerful in our own right.
Yeah,
Right. And I
yeah.
find that we are actually more powerful together as like men and women than we are right now apart where it's like women power, oh men. No, I think we were created to have more power by joining forces than
Mhm.
than we could ever separate.
Yeah, I think the challenge that comes to mind, like when we're talking about this, because this is beautiful. I love the balance between the hard and the soft, and the masculine and the feminine, and
Hmm.
finding a good balance for yourself and for your partner or whoever it is that you're working with, right?
Yeah.
But finding those people that have the same mindset that want to create power together. I feel like there's so many people out there right now that just don't either have the knowledge or
Hmm.
have the mindset to be like, "This is
Yeah, the
something."
awareness that that's possible, right? Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
where I am coming in, is to bring that awareness
Yeah.
as to what's possible when, you have that dynamic. And so for me, it's more about really opening up that possibility for the world to see,
Mhm.
and then for people to say, okay, like, how do we do this now? Like, how do we create this new
Mhm.
world? Because it would be a new way of living for everyone. It would be like, oh
Yeah.
wow, like the power is in that joining those forces, right? And
Uh-huh.
from there, everything kind of flows. So that's my mission. I know it's kind of big because of the fact that it's very contrarian to the current model that we're living in.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah,
what
I
I
don't think
see.
it's too big. I think it's just right, right? Because
Yeah,
somebody has to bring it up. Somebody has to start talking about it. And I mean, I've been on a mission, like I've been dating again, and it's
good.
kind of like I have to sit back for a minute and I have to manifest, like, what exactly am I looking
Mhm,
for? How exactly do
mhm,
I find that in somebody? And what do
mhm.
I have to do with myself in order to attract that? Right? There's so
That's
many
that's
different.
the key. That's the key. It's like,
Yeah,
who do I need to become to attract that person in my life? Because I was before I was more in like, okay, writing down who I want, like the person that I want in my life. But I'm like, okay, who do I need to become to have that
exactly.
person?
And
And
I
so
think that's the piece
that's
that we're
what I've
missing.
that's what I've been focusing on more so. It's like, okay, I need to become, I want a husband that can, take charge and do this, but I also have to allow him. So I have to be that soft and that feminine
Mhm.
woman for that man to then want to provide. Because if not, what happens is that when we're in our masculine, which is what happens when we're leading and doing all these things,
Yeah.
a man that's in his masculine will automatically go into his feminine just to balance that power dynamic, which is what happened in my marriage, right? And so it was like, I was in my masculine, he was in his masculine at work, and then he'd come home and then he'd have to automatically go into his feminine because of the fact that I was the one taking charge in all of these things. I was the one planning dates and our trips and this and that all the time because
Mhm.
I wanted it a certain way. And if it wasn't the way I wanted it, it wasn't
Yeah.
good enough.
Well, you had to
And
make a choice, like, after discovering all this and getting divorced, right? You're like, "Do I wanna live that same life, or do I wanna make changes within myself so that I could have something different?"
Exactly. That's really, really what it came down to because I was so used to like taking charge in everything. And so I realized that really affected the marriage that I had. And I didn't realize how much, but this is what I grew up seeing with my mom. My mom obviously is that
Traditional.
woman. Yeah. Like she's the one. Well, my mom is the one that takes charge and does and all these things. But at the same time, my dad, you know, he's a strong man and he would try to
Mhm.
do things, but at the same time my mom would come in, take over, do things without. So for like even last year, the property remodel,
Mhm.
my mom did this entirely over his head, and this was a huge thing. I didn't know until like down the road, and I said, I don't want to get in the middle of this. Like, I'm only helping you because you said let's do this. And I said, okay, let's do this, right? But I didn't realize, and it was a big issue because my dad was thinking, they have a property in DR, they're building something there, and he's thinking like, okay, we're doing that here, and then all of a sudden he sees all this happening here, and it was, oh my goodness. I posted a video like during the remodel. I would post stories of everything all the time. Like I was posting the journey, right? And I posted a video because we had finished all of upstairs. We were doing
Mhm.
remodeling upstairs. We finished all of upstairs and we were now going to start downstairs, which wasn't originally planned. And
Yeah.
my mom decided, "Oh, you know what? Let's just do everything." And I said, "Okay, I'm here to help you. Let's just
Yeah.
do it." And so I'm filming and I'm saying, "Okay, well, tomorrow we start the demo downstairs, whatever, whatever." My dad messages me the next day, message like, "What are you guys doing? What's going on over there?" Because he's in Dominican Republic. He's like, "What's going on over there?" And just upset because it's like obviously it was going to be more money spent.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "No, we're just doing a few things." No, we did everything. But this was the way, so this is a dynamic I see a lot
Yeah.
in general. It's like the women want to take charge and they want to take over, but then they also then want to then my mom is always exhausted, always carrying everything on her back, always stressed out, always, and I'm like, "You know what? That's not the life I want." So I'd rather have a man who's taking care of everything and me not being right at all. I could be wrong all day, but if you're taking care of everything,
Okay with
just
that.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. And so it's just realizing, like, what is it that you do want? Because
Yeah.
before, when I was married, I was more in my being right and in control than being taken care of and being spoiled and being treated like a princess, right? It was more like, no, I want to be right and in control. And
Yeah,
so we
no,
have to make that choice.
I'd rather
And
be
really, really, what's really, really, really crazy is that in that surrender and in that softness, we can actually get more of what we want and have more control and have more, of all the things we want than we can through being in control and right.
yeah,
Like that's what I've come to realize in the last 4 years of
yeah.
my journey after my divorce. And it took a divorce and all the things that happened, at the end of my marriage for me
Mhm,
to make this realization and really dive in because I've been studying, I mean, so many different things, like in terms of biology, in terms of the
mhm.
way women and men function, the boundaries that we need to set
Yeah,
on ourselves, right? As women, it's like, I'm not going to say XYZ, even if I want to, because that's a boundary I set on myself.
yeah,
I'm
and
not going to do
it's not gonna give you the outcome that you desire.
exactly. And so it's like I have to look at everything from that lens of like, what is the outcome I desire? Because the outcome isn't I want to be right and in control. That's not the outcome.
Yeah.
So, okay, how do I get what I want without having to like be right and in control and I can
Mhm.
surrender and still get what I want, right?
Yeah,
How?
no, I like
So,
that. And sometimes, like you said, like it took a divorce for you to figure this out and put the pieces together. But now you have something that you're creating that's brilliant, by the way. Tell us a little bit about your
sure.
property and what you're going to be offering and how can people get in touch with you to like have this experience?
Okay, yeah. So I have this property in Sarti Lux Estates, which is the property we remodeled last year. And the experiences that will be held there, I have the muse, I have the initiation and the genesis. So two of them are for women only, either married or single women looking to get married. And then one of them is for couples. And they're each 2 nights, 3-day experiences. And these are full immersive experiences that allow women to learn about these principles in a way that's experiential and also to learn to receive and let go and just be, right? And so to have that surrender where they realize they don't have to be in control and it's these experiences that will teach them who they are and the essence of who they are and how to receive from a man, right? Receive from a man, because they want love and they want to be cherished and they want all of these beautiful things, but we have to become that woman to receive that. So that's one of the experiences, which is called the muse, because we want to be
The
the
muse.
muse of our husbands, right?
Yeah.
Like I know I do, right? I want to be his muse. I want his devotion. I want him to be inspired by me and to put the world at my feet, right? That's, and I think everyone wants that. And so that's one of the experiences that I'm really, finalizing. The one is for couples that are already married and they want to set a foundation and reignite all of these things. So that's another one that I've done a few things with that already and have had some testimonials, and so that's been really amazing. And then I have the initiation, which is for brides to be, so that they can learn these principles. And also, what I've done is I've gathered all of these different marriage, you could say, the word just flew out of my mind. So it's like what, like in India and then the Jewish community, they have all these different things they do before someone gets married. Traditions. That's what
Yeah.
it is. Marriage traditions. So they've got all these different ones. So I've been studying all the ones done worldwide, and
Mhm.
I've looked at all the ones that I thought were really cool, really interesting. I've reimagined them, created
Mhm.
a different type of traditional type of like it kind of like to set the bride off to her new path. So
Yeah.
it's a way of like, so this is the initiation. So this is for
Yeah.
brides where they get to be celebrated and honored and set to a new path in their marriage.
Yeah, it's
As
almost like the
as
starting to the foundation.
exactly, yeah. So it's like starting to their new life and like
Mhm.
into learning these principles, and in a way that allows us women to see our power in our softness and in our femininity versus our power in the way the world has now. It's like, oh, I can do everything. I do everything. I am everything.
Yeah.
Yes, we can, but
I
do
don't
you
want
want
to.
to? No. So that's the idea. It's like, how do we create that balance of like, yes, I get to be successful and to do the things I love, but at the same time, I get to come home and be soft and loved and, cherished and taken care of.
Yeah.
Right. So,
How can they find or get information on these experiences that you have?
so in August, I'll be fully launching everything. So
Good.
that's the goal. So,
It's exciting. So in August, we'll have to share or come back on again and do a follow up to this because there's so many more questions I'd want to ask, things people would probably want to know for sure.
mhm,
Thank you,
yeah,
Barbara, for coming on and sharing with us. I'm
yeah,
excited that you're doing this and I'm excited to learn more. So, we will definitely book another one of these in August so we can get more information. And I love to pick brains about the masculine and the feminine and how to actually find the partner that we're looking for because there's
yeah,
so many of us single women out there that really just want a man that's going to bring in peace and we can bring in peace into their life and it can be a
mhm,
mutual growing relationship instead of one-sided, and I
yes.
think that's what makes it so different.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, no, this is a subject I love to talk about
Me
because
too.
I've been studying it for all these years, and I realized I had it all wrong for
Yeah.
17 years. And then I noticed around me, right, in all of the relationships around me, I
Mhm.
noticed like, wow, like this, like I see myself, right? I see
Yeah,
myself in all of these, like with my parents and with the people around me. I'm like, oh wow, yeah.
right.
And then I can see how it affects that, dynamic, right? Where you can see the deflation, like we go out with my parents and my dad will think he's doing something amazing for my mom and say like, "Oh, look, I, got you, this or
Yeah,
I'm taking you here." And my mom is just kind of like, just and so you see his deflation of like,
yeah,
well, nothing I do is good enough. And that was one thing that my ex-husband told me when our marriage was like in the middle of me finding out about the infidelity and things. He said, "I just feel like I can never make you happy."
he can't please you, yeah.
And I, when he said that to me, I was just like, "But that's not true." I thought, that's not true. But the way that I acted and
Communicated,
was,
yeah,
that's how he felt, and I couldn't refute that. That's how he felt, like he could never make me happy. And
yeah,
for a man to not be able to succeed, because men are built to succeed and here's the thing, it's like men, they interact in a relationship very differently than we do. So it's very different. Like they need to feel successful. They need to feel, all of these things in the relationship. And if they don't, they're gonna go find it somewhere else, right?
yeah,
Whether it's in their job or whatever it is, they're gonna look and the disconnection begins. And so yeah, when he said that, that was like a huge like eye opener for me as
yeah,
well. Because I said, in my mind, I was like, that's not true. But then
yeah,
I could
but
start seeing how.
he never saw it or heard it come from you.
Exactly, exactly,
Mhm.
and so that was his experience of me, and I couldn't refute that, So it was, yeah, a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of things that the last 4 years have just brought up for me of like all the moments where I, showed him no appreciation when he was trying his
Yeah,
hardest, right? And it was like it wasn't good enough, and it wasn't good enough, and so it's like, so if it's not good enough, then what am I doing? What am
yeah,
I doing in that? And so
yeah.
yeah, so and I think us women can do that a lot. We can
Absolutely. I think we get stuck in our heads and things just go robotic, right? And we forget about the other person in the relationship. But this taught you a big lesson, and you took the lesson and you created an opportunity to help others not have to end a marriage because of just the lack of
exactly.
communication.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and for me, it took ending the marriage to discover that because I don't know if I would have
Yeah,
discovered it in the
probably not.
marriage. Exactly, probably not. So, but I do believe that many marriages can be saved and they don't have to go through that, if they start learning this and practicing it before it's too late,
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you so much,
yeah,
Barbara. That was wonderful. I loved having you on the show.
and love being
We
here.
will book again in August so we can get
Mhm.
more information. And that's it for today, everyone. See you next time on Untamed and Unapologetic.
Bye. Thank you.